Dan Lorang is the head of performance for BORA Red Bull Hansgrohe. He's coached Olympic champions and Tour de France winners for over a decade. But what he revealed to me today in this conversation, it blew my mind. It turns out the biggest difference between amateurs and pros, it's not available time to train, it's not FTP, it's the things that amateurs completely ignore. In this episode, Dan shares his real playbook, the stuff that even experienced cyclists overlook. If you've ever wondered why you're plateauing, this is one episode you can't afford to miss. Welcome to the podcast, Dan Lorang. Dan, welcome back to the Roadman podcast.
Yeah, thank you for having me again, Anthony. Nice to be again here and speaking.
Today, I want to try and distill your vast coaching knowledge from working with the top athletes in the world and give some actionable tips and insights to amateurs listening to this podcast. So we may jump around a little bit and it won't be as tightly structured on building out training plans. But to kick off, how do you look at individualizing training plans beyond power zones and training zones? Is there something that amateurs are missing in terms of how they structure the season? Obviously, the race calendar is a big structure for you guys. Is that what you're predominantly leading with when you think about that overview of looking at someone's season?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the races is always the goal. Basically, you train for the races. So you train to have to feel good, to have good results at the races. That's why you always plan backwards. So you look where are you peak races, or probably your A, B, and C races, so that you, when you have more races, what is the case in cycling, you try to make some kind of prioritization, and then you take your A races, and from there you plan backwards the season and make the different training periods with different points that you want to focus on, and that also depends for sure where you started. So probably the analysis of the athlete at the beginning of the season, looking which kind of athlete you have, is still also the thing what gives you how long the different periods are. So one thing is when is the goal race, and the other thing is what kind of athletes are you, and then with this information you try to figure out the right training plan until the peak race.
So to step one step backwards from the target race, what does a taper look like for a priority race? Is there principles that are applicable across the whole squad, or is it very much case by case specific?
Mm-hmm. So I think there is some kind of basic principle. So if somebody from the listeners would now make a Google research, or nowadays ChatGPT research, you would find some kind of classical tapering where it's about reducing volume, keeping intensity, and for sure you always try to get basically the fatigue down by keeping your performance. So because performance buildup works over the load that you put, but for the race you want to have fresh legs, you want to be at the best point, and by reducing fatigue. And so classically in the race week, probably you have the day before the race, you have some kind of activation. Depends a little bit on the rider, 1.5 hour where you have some activation efforts that is really individual. For example, 2 times 3 minutes progressively, or 2 times where you do 9 minutes with lactate shuttling. For example, 1 minute over threshold, 2 minutes below threshold. You do some activation, and the day before that, you in general have your rest day or your recovery day. What means don't ride at all, or for some even it means just moving a little bit around. And so then we have already the 2 days before the race, and then it depends a little bit. So when you're an amateur rider, how big is also the workload from your normal life, how much training you do in the days before. So normally in that week happens one intensity day and probably one longer ride compared to the rest of the week. So let's say you have Monday a rest day. So let's say the race is on Sunday, then you have a Saturday an activation ride, you have Friday your rest day, you have probably on Thursday a shorter ride of around let me say 2.5 hours. You have on Wednesday a long ride of around 3 to 4 hours, so depending on how much time you have. And on Tuesday you're doing probably a short ride with some intensity. So, and on Monday you have again your rest day. So that could be one version how to
Yeah.
do it, how to deal with it. Um, one big thing is One thing is to recover um, from the let me say from the cardiovascular side, and the other side thing is to recover from the muscular side. So you have this kind of sprinter types, the athletes with a little bit more fast twitch muscle fiber. They need longer recovery to be really fresh for the races. So probably they are doing a little bit less than the pure endurance rider. For the pure endurance rider, it's really like they don't feel well if they don't have enough load going into the race. And then we come immediately to the next topic. So that is the classic tapering. But there's also a tapering phase that you taper basically the week before a key event, and then you start again to build up some load to go into the race with some preload, because some athletes perform better when they have some kind of a bigger preload before the race. And that is really specific. This is nothing what you would write in the book, but what you really have to find out by yourself, or if you're working with an athlete together with the athlete.
And are you still prescribing zones of parameters, or have you moved across to respiratory analysis? I know Visma, Lisa Bike have started using respiration as their main prescription tool now, using timeware.
Yeah, we are following this for sure. Also, what's happening on that area, but at the moment we are still, or at least I'm still working with the classic parameters, with power meter, with power, with heart rate, and with RPE. So this is for me. These are for me still the parameters that I'm working with. With the breathing rhythm, this is something, or with the breathing pattern, it's something. Sure, we look into this, we observe, but it's not so much, or it's not used. At least not from me used, and also not used in our team at the moment.
And do you rely on the performance management chart in training peaks? Because obviously the drawback of power as opposed to measuring breathing rhythm is we assume like a linear relationship between like hour 1 and hour 5 on an endurance ride. So zone 2, hour 1, we're attributing maybe 25 or 30 TSS points for that hour. Hour 5, we're attributing the same TSS points for that hour, even though you could make an argument that it's a different physiological toll on the body to perform that same work in the 5th hour as opposed to the 1st hour. If that's one of the flaws, and we build that flaw and we carry across that into performance management chart, does performance management chart then become less reliable?
I think that's really. I can just tell you how I'm using this chart. So I use this chart just to compare, for example, periods with periods or year by year, and really individual. So I never compare performance chart from athlete A to performance chart from athlete B. So for me, it's more like, oh, okay, is there some kind of relation between what I see there and the performance outcome from the athlete? And if you have this several times during the year, probably then you see, okay, if I'm there at that point in the performance chart, the probability that my athlete will perform or not perform is quite high. But I don't use it to adapt training load. I don't use it to monitor training load. So for me, I'm also here quite classic. I look how much time do we spend in heart rate zones, how much time do we spend in the power zones, how long does it take an athlete to feel recovered? So from RPE side, how is the sleep? How is HRV? So more this kind of parameters, and not so much the calculated parameters. What basically a performance chart is. So there's some kind of algorithm behind it who makes calculations. What is like I said, it's could be something really interesting. But I like more the real or the measured parameters and to work with them.
And athletes that are over the age of 40, would you coach them using a different philosophy, or is there special considerations for an athlete who's over the age of 40?
I think the older we get, the more we have to take care about recovery. And if this is a recreational cyclist who has also a normal job, I think I would really look into that and look how big is the load beside the training, how much recovery do you need, what is this about social life, family, and so on. And I would try to figure out a program that that the overall load is still positive, that he's not always chasing behind, oh, I have to do this, I have to do that, and just training, showering, family. So really having a deeper look in how the recovering is going, how is the sleep going, is the sleep pattern really good, or do we have disrupted sleep? What could be a sign of that we are just over the limit, not in terms of pure training, but in terms of overall load for that person in the daily life. So and probably the listeners would know that from their own. The older you get, the less tolerant you get for this. So when you are 20, you don't really care about it. You can do 100 things together, but when you're 40 and even over 40, it gets more and more to a point that you feel this external load much more, and that it also will have an impact on your performance. So sometimes there, less is more, the basic quote to that. And I would always try to explain it to the athlete, because the athlete also has to understand, why should I now even skip a session or make it shorter? I want to get better. Why should I now train less? Then you have to also to explain why you make these adaptations, or why probably, because we said how to build up a season, why we probably say, hey, look, these are 2 weeks there we would like to have a high workload. Probably it's better we plan here something where you just take your time there, you go on holiday or whatever, you do there 2 weeks of good training, and for this you have the other weeks again less load and more time for other stuff. So also this should find consideration in the yearly schedule.
That's really interesting. So you're almost advocating periodizing external stressors outside training. So like freeing up space for extra training bandwidth at certain points of the year. So that could be a conversation with your spouse saying, hey, I'm going to be less available to do housework in this period, but I'm going to make up for it in this period, or having a similar conversation with your boss. So you're effectively you're periodizing training in one direction, and your work and life stress is periodized in the opposite direction.
100%, and I would even share this with the specific person, so with the boss, with the family, and so on, so that basically everybody knows, oh, okay, that's just now this period. There he's a little bit more involved, and then he has again more time for us, more time for the job or wherever, so that this plan is clear to everybody. Because the more people you involve, the less stress you have, because you don't have to explain yourself why you have now to go on the weekend 4 hours on the bike 2 times, so on Saturday, Sunday, because probably your family knows, okay, this is now just one block over the next 2 or 3 weeks, and then after again it's less. So when you have this yearly plan, share it with the people around you. I always see, so when I coached age groupers in the past, or amateur cyclists, that by sharing this is also a big motivation for them, and it just takes people on board to your project, and then it feels better.
Yeah, 100%. Like anytime I've had a conversation with my girlfriend saying, look, here's the period I'm in right now. It's not going to be like this forever. This is just the next 3 weeks, the next 4 weeks. And then I can chill. Then we can go on holidays. Then we can go for a run. We can go back to going climbing. But for right now, I need to be dialed on this plan.
Yeah, exactly. So I would really confirm this. And then it's also important to stick to that and not say, yeah, but I just do a little bit more, or next week, or I still have to do a long ride, or whatever. I think that's really to make it really clear to all the parties, and the goal of this is also so to have a structure, but also to take stress out from you, so that hey, everybody is involved. Everybody knows that there I have a weekend where I'm basically fully loaded in training, or even for example, you do a 5-hour ride, and probably say there you also want to have at least 1 hour to relax from that. So we're coming home, enjoy your lunch or whatever, just sitting on the couch for 1 hour, and you don't want to feel bad about it. And then it's good if people know, okay, that's the plan for the weekend. And and that takes stress out from you. So I will always try to reduce this external stress, because this costs a lot of energy. And one thing what probably is not be part of the podcast, but it's quite important, is the stress in relations. That is one of the biggest stressor you can have. So if you have stress with the family, with your girlfriend, also on with your wife, this really has a big impact on your health, on how you feel, on your performance. And so this is always something where you try to avoid if possible.
Yeah, I seen an analysis of Warren Buffett, who the investor for Berkshire Hathaway, lives an exceptionally unhealthy life. Eats McDonald's, drinks soda, not super physically active, but he's engineered a lifestyle that's such a low stress lifestyle that there was a lot of debate is, has his low stress environment almost offset his bad habits? So it's like an interesting
Yeah, I can imagine.
debate.
Yeah.
Athletes are always looking for, the turbocharge button. How can I get better real fast? Because typically we have a tight schedule, balancing conflicting demands on our time, work, family, trying to squeeze training in. So sometimes we can get a training block away. It could be a family holiday, or it could be going away with friends, and we can go on a training block away. Is altitude training worth considering for athletes? I know a bunch of your athletes live at altitude in Andorra, and some of the others just do shorter blocks at altitude. What's the pros and cons of either approach? And then I suppose as a follow on to that, is it worth the average dude or girl listening to this planning an
Mhm,
altitude block to Sierra Nevada?
mhm. Um, I would see like this. So if you see it more like an adventure, so basically an adventure, I mean you are at a nice place, you are in the mountains, you want to experience altitude, you have time, so you have no stress, but you have time to do it. Then I think it's something nice to test. But if you have not so much time, if you basically just have 2 weeks where we say, I want to go there, then in my opinion, it makes more sense to go 2 weeks in the south, making a proper training at, I don't know, uh, no matter where you have good weather and you're just focusing in your training, you can do your quality training, you can do volume training. In altitude, there's so much things what you can do wrong that there's a high risk that
Yeah.
the performance benefit from the altitude will not be there. And normally you go to altitude when you have already a good level. So people go to altitude with a good aerobic level, and they then try to increase it to the next level. But you have to take care about adaptation, about intensity control, about having the irons stores full. The sleep quality could be you can have problems with the sleep quality. Normally, logistic wise, it's not so easy depending on the period of the year where you are. So there's a lot of things going on with that. Oh, that's why I say if you have time and if you say, okay, I always wanted to do this, and you plan this long in advance, then try it. Talk to some coaches, or to at least one coach who can give you some advices what to take care of before you go, and then just do it and enjoy it. But if it's to save time, I would not recommend it. Really not. There, I would say, okay, then just skip it. Just go do proper training for 2 weeks. Just take basically just put you in that you are in a hotel. Somebody cares about your food, about you making your room. You don't have to do anything besides training. That is really effective because this, and also the altitude studies. Sometimes it's hard to really make the difference. What was now the real effect? Was it the training camp environment, even with professional athletes, or was it the altitude, or was it a mixture of both? But what we know is when you can train properly without any kind of stress outside of you, you are much more. You can support much more load than what you can do when you're at home in a normal environment, working 40 hours a week or whatever.
Roadman, whether you're a weekend warrior or a world tour rider, the right tools can make all the difference. Enter 4i's Precision 3 Plus Power Meter, the latest innovation from 4i, designed to help you reach peak performance. The Precision 3 Plus Power Meter is a compact yet powerful unit. It weighs just 9 grams and it's packed with features that set it apart, including integration with Apple's Find My network, giving you the peace of mind by letting you track your power meter wherever it is. Plus, you've got up to 800 hours of battery life. We all know that accuracy is key, and 4i's delivers a groundbreaking plus or minus 1% accuracy thanks to their unique 3D strain gauge technology. For those seeking even more data, the Precision 3 Plus Pro Power Meter offers dual-sided power meter metrics, giving you detailed insights into pedaling efficiency, torque effectiveness, and left-right balance. 4i's offers versatile product options to suit your needs. Choose from ride-ready power meters with pre-installed units on Shimano cranks, or up for factory-installed power meter where you send in your crankset for a custom installation. Ready to elevate your cycling game? Trust 4I's Precision 3 Plus Power Meter. Precision, performance and peace of mind all in one. Learn more by visiting 4iiii.com. That's 4iiii.com. I'm going to put that in the description down below.
Are you guys using heat training? Not so much for acclimation purposes, more for physiological adaptation purposes, you know, the boiler suit on core body temperature monitor and looking to get a heat stimulus into athletes?
Yeah, so some of our athletes are using this. Everybody who did it already knows it doesn't come without a price, so it's not the most nicest thing to
Horrible.
do.
Horrible.
Exactly.
I threw the heating on, raincoat, full, everything in the house, and it's like, oh, this looked better on the packet.
Yeah. There are, like we know, there are studies out there who shows you that there's a big impact can have a good impact, performance impact on heat, but also there's the risk to overdo it. It's basically nearly the same as for altitude. So if you want to do it, really get advices for somebody who has expertise and don't try to overdo it. But here you should calculate to have around, let me say 3 to 4 weeks where you're doing this 5 times a week, probably 1 hour. And if you want to do this on a roller inside and you want to try this, you can give it a try, but it costs you some, like I said, it costs you some energy. And you should not do it just like, okay, I'm now doing heat training, because the same as with altitude training, you can really overdo it. And that means that you're really losing some weeks. And this also happens sometimes to professionals, that they overdo it. They come in a status of overreaching with heat training. And they need weeks to come back, to feel good again, to feel healthy again, to feel powerful again. So, I think it could be something for somebody who has not so much time, who cannot travel in the south, and he say, okay, I want to give a different stimulus to my body, or I want to combine heat acclimatization with heat training. For example, your competition happens somewhere where it's really hot. Then you can say, okay, besides doing 2 weeks of adaptation, because normally 2 weeks is needed to get adapted to heat, you make this a little bit longer, and then you also use the benefit of heat training. And so could be a thing to do.
I've heard whispers that the BORA coaches like their athletes to train first thing in the morning. Is there a circadian rhythm benefit to training first thing in the morning, or is it a case of professionalism and it's the thing you do because you're a professional cyclist, you get up in the morning? Because I know there is studies on increased grip strength in mid-morning as cortisol rises. I think we've seen more world records broken at that time and around the late morning time than any other time. What's the thinking behind training timing?
So first of all, we want that the riders have also a normal daily routine. So they are professionals, so their main job is to ride the bike, and then also organizing their normal life around when they are not in a camp. And we want that they don't have to ride at 8 o'clock the bike, but at least waking up like normal people, having their breakfast, and then going for a ride like other people probably go to work, having a good rhythm. Because this is also quite good adjustable then to the social life what they have with the family. So then they don't have stress there. About what you are saying, I think there we could say pros and cons, because when races are happening, they normally start at 12 o'clock or 1 o'clock in the afternoon, or probably at 11, and go over the afternoon. So basically then you would have to say, okay, we have to get adapted to that rhythm like it is in the race. But here we prefer to adapt it to the rhythm of the athlete, to the living rhythm, and also to the environment rhythm. As long as not somebody is coming, I want to train at 5 in the evening until 10 o'clock, because then we would for sure interfere. But just having this routine, having this daily life, and not getting lost basically in this professional athlete life, and being part of the normal lifestyle. We have also even have some riders who they are cyclists, and then when they finish training, they say themselves, then we are just normal people, and so that's why it's good to have some kind of rhythm every day, the same if possible. Just that your body can adapt to it, and that we don't have a new variable always coming into the game.
I spoke with a endurance runner who embedded himself with the Ethiopians for a few years. I haven't released this podcast yet. I'll share it with you when I do. It was really interesting because Ethiopia are obviously producing year after year some of the best endurance athletes in the world.
Mm-hmm.
They look at training very, very different than we do in a Western culture. They look at it as almost a spiritual or religious experience. And one of the things which I thought was super interesting, you've seen the data on blue zones, these areas of the world where people live the longest. They have the highest concentration of centurions. So it's areas like Okinawa in Japan, Sardinia in Italy. When they deconstructed those areas, one of the key commonalities was the power of community, the power of being around other people. And the Ethiopians have intuitively caught on to this, where they think community is important. But they take it one step further. If you've seen an athlete in Ethiopia who's training on his own, they look at this as a selfish pursuit, that they believe there's an energy that each athlete has. And by taking that energy and using it just to benefit yourself, you're actually robbing from the group. You're stealing an energy from the group collective. That if we all met up and we all went training together, we'd be more than the sum total of our parts. Mm-hmm. And I'm kind of reminded of that saying, it's not what you know for sure. It's not what you don't know that hurts you. It's what you know for sure that just isn't so. And I wonder if we've gone so far down this data road that we've lost some of the connection, some of the playfulness it was of meeting up with your friends when you really got started cycling. And, you know, I had friends and when we're all trying to become pro, and we'd meet up and we'd say we're going to do a 3-hour endurance ride, and 8 hours later we'd still be in the mountains exploring and laughing and telling stories and crashing, and miles just went faster, hours ticked by like minutes. And in that quest for marginal gains, it all becomes very professional. Do we erode some of that childlike play and curiosity? And is there a benefit to that?
It's really interesting to listen to that. I have never thought about it. So for sure, there are different cultures out there, especially in running, like what you say when you're in Kenya. So it's completely a different motivation and a different way how to see things. For sure, in Western country, we look more into data and rational data, and looking for why should we train as a group? Because if I train individually, I can make more stay in my zones. Training is more effective. I think cycling is also a little bit different to running because with the wind child, if you just ride in a group, it's quite a different training stimulus.
Yeah.
But I get the point, and I think the most important part here is also I always ask athletes when they ask me about should I do this, should I do that, should I do this competition, or I always ask what was the reason why you start with the sport? So why did you start with it? And then hopefully they answer because they like to ride their bike, the passion to be outside, to look at the mountains or whatever. And I always try to remember them to get back to that one. So if they feel bad, just to feel, hey, I just said we are doing this for competitions, but the initial idea or the initial thoughts were probably completely different. It was because we liked what we are doing. And sometimes this gets lost when we look too much into data, when riders start only to look at the power meter, when they just go on performance. And you also see riders cracking then, even younger riders, especially now in our days, it seems, I'm not 100% sure, it seems that they crack even a little bit earlier, because in cycling now the speed is higher. It's basically already with 15 years old, they train like the pros. They have the knowledge, they have access to knowledge. And a lot of them have the feeling, we are already behind something. We see a new training monsters. Oh, we also have to do this, or we have to do that. So more like that somebody, or that they feel that they are hunted, and not that they really enjoy what they are doing. I think there's really a big trap that you can fall in, that you're just looking too much in this rational stuff. And then I think it's also the job of a coach just to remind people, hey, I write, for example, sometimes I just write 5 hour ride, ride for the soul. So I don't care about the intensity. Just feel, go on feeling, enjoy the ride, look left and right. And if you do it in a group or alone, I don't care. Just you should come back from that ride and say, wow, was a cool ride. I love to ride my bike. So, and I think this has also a lot of power into it. But the culture, what you described, I think there you have to grow up there, or you have to dig into that culture to really understand. And it's nice that we have a big world, so every parts of the world are having different cultures. So it's nice to share for sure this point of views.
It's interesting because momentum normally swings. When we swing too far in one direction, we swing back in the other direction. And we've gone very far down the training on your own, data-driven approach. And I wonder, is it just swinging back the other direction? I'm reminded of that quote from the great author Hunter S. Thompson. He said, some things in life are too important to be taken seriously. We have less fun on our own. You just don't laugh as much. Who goes laugh? Like, unless you're schizophrenic, who's going out training on their own laughing? But when you meet a group of friends, and I wonder then from that, and again, none of this is based in data, just, throwing out some thoughts. I wonder, do you pull 2% harder for 2% longer for a friend than you do for a teammate?
Mm-hmm. I think you would do, and we have to say that cycling is really a special sport. So I think the only sports where you have to suffer that somebody else is winning. So I think that is really special, and I think you can suffer more if you really like the guy behind it, or if you have gone with that guy through good times to bad times. So if that connection is really if we have a really good connection to that guy. But we also have to see that, and that is the less romantic part of it, it's a job somehow. And athletes know, okay, if I'm helping here, if I'm, for example, one of the best helpers, also this has a big value even for myself. So they can also see the benefit from myself, for sure, also for the teammate. But for sure, as a team, you try in training camps or at racing, you try to create that groups. But it's hard to say we create a group. It's more a group has to create itself. So people has to look for this kind of connections. You have to bring together the right personalities. For sure, there you have an influence on it. But then this magic has to happen. And in general, this happens at races. And there's a lot of energy behind that. So there I completely agree. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like science meets art almost. It's happened like a few times through history, like Pippen and Jordan, Hincapie and Armstrong. Like it's happened a couple of times, and I don't know if you can recreate that magic. But switching gears from the mythical, spiritual, and religious back to the technical, have you jumped on this trend of shorter crank lengths this year over at the team?
We have some riders where we adjusted because of the bike fitting what we are doing, not because the trend. We also observing this, that there is really, like you're saying, a trend. So a lot of riders changed it. But for us, we also need the reason. Okay, what is the reason why we should change it for this rider, for this rider? It's something where we with our engineer department, we are digging into it, but not because of the trend, but it's always a topic. It's always a topic to say what is the bit. It started with the time trial bikes. There, it's already quite long that people play around with different crank length to have a better hip angle, and so we really try to make individualizations rider by rider, and that's why I would not say no. So no, we did not say okay, half of the guys now get a shorter crank length, but we are measuring here and try to figure out numbers that really confirms that for this guy it's good, and probably for another guy it doesn't suit now, or we have other things where we want to focus on.
You have Dan Bingham working full time figuring out the aerodynamics on it for you.
Exactly, yeah. So that is a big help for us for sure that he takes care about the aerodynamics, and also together with Johnny Well, that they execute this, for example, in time trials, being in contact with the coaches, explaining to riders. So bringing that engineer knowledge also to the sport directors, to the whole group. And it's an ongoing process. So you're never finished with it. So you do one test and then you think already, okay, but next time we go to this track and we take another rider. And so I think it's also good for a team manager to understand this, that it's not about we do one test and it's done. No, it's basically ongoing process, development process. And it's good that we have now that opportunity to have, even in our team, experts for that field.
We have 3 long form podcasts every week. Some of them are 90 minutes or 2 hours long, and I realize you're busy. Sometimes it's hard to cut through the noise and figure out the signal, figure out what the important parts are of these conversations. So I've taken your feedback, and once a week I'm delivering to your inbox a newsletter called The Saturday Spin. It's a 4-minute read or less, and it's going to break down the very best thing I've learned on the podcast this week. So it's insights from the biggest names in the world tour, physiologists, sports psychologists, and coaches. It's completely free to sign up to the newsletter. All you have to do is go to roadmancycling.com, stick in your email address, and once a week on a Saturday morning, I will deliver the Saturday Spin newsletter direct to your inbox. The link is down below. Go sign up.
And it's back to the merger of science and art almost. Like they say, the art is never completed, it's only abandoned. And at some point you need to approach aerodynamics like that, because you can always do an extra 5 hours in the wind tunnel. You need to just say, we're happy with this for the moment. We'll improve it when we can, but let's abandon it for now.
Yeah, it's also, and there also we have a close connection to the engineer department. For example, they come up and say, hey, it would be good to do aerodynamic testing with this and this rider. And then the coach has to decide with the rider, yeah, but does it fit into the race schedule? What do we prefer? Do we have now stress, travel to the track, having another travel, having the load there on the track? Or do we prefer to stay at home to give more rest to the rider and even not getting the extra watts from the aerodynamic testing? It's a case by case discussion, and that is teamwork. So basically, there comes up an idea, and the worst thing what you can do is that now engineer department says, okay, this rider has to come to the track on that and that day, and not involving basically the coach aspect of it, and so the performance aspect beside the track testing. And that is working pretty well in our team. I have to say that we really looking, okay, which rider where does it fit in the race schedule? Can we do some material testing for Roubaix? Can we do aero testing there and there? And it's always performance driven. So it should never compromise. We will never want to compromise on performance. And a travel extra can also compromise on performance. And that's something we try to avoid.
And kind of flowing from that question about crank length, are you guys still a fan of the low cadence sessions? And does someone that changes their crank length, does that then in effect bleed into your job if you're prescribing a low cadence effort? Does that slightly change it if somebody's on it? Because it's changing maybe the torque requirement from someone going from a 172 to a 165 crank.
Yeah, basically we would reduce the torque by going down with the crank length, so you increase cadence. I would not link now one to another. I would say there is something in doing torque work on the bike. It's for me the application of strength training to the specific. So you can do in the gym, you can do your squats, you can do your exercises, but in general the body is always good in doing what you trained to the body. And so if you do a squat, it does not mean that you have now more power on the bike. It could be that you have a higher recruiting of your muscle fibers. But the best thing to do is try to get the simulation of this high strength on the bike. And that's why I think torque work has some kind of place in a bike program. And then there are so many different ways to do it. Do it with really low cadence, with really high torque, and doing sprints and so on. So I think there is a value in this. We can also talk about durability. Does torque have an impact on durability? There's not the real proof about this, but it could have an impact. But at least to train also this muscle fiber specifically is something what is still part of the training, and also the shorter cranks do not change it. I know what you mean is that basically these high torques never got achieved in a race, because if you have a high cadence, you never achieve these high torques that you are training basically with the low cadence work. But you basically what you are doing is you raise the potential. So you activate more muscles, you create the muscle pathways, or you create basically the pathways to the muscle that your brain can activate these muscle fibers. And this is something what you do also in the gym when you do, for example, maximum strength training. You also try to recruit as much muscle fibers as possible. And that is what you also try then to do on the bike, to have a higher potential at least.
So what would a typical torque session look like?
It's like I said, it's really different sessions out there. For example, what I like to do is, for example, 5 times 1 to 2 minutes, about 35 to 40 RPM with, and then it depends a little bit on how much torque to give. 1.5 Newton meter per kilo, something like this. The intensity should be really like feeling like an intensity on threshold. So that's how it should feel for the athlete. And then you build it up from 1.2 to 1.5 Newton meter per kilo, and see where this athlete is, probably for a sprinter more. And then you do 2 minutes rest between the repetitions. So 5 times 2 minutes with 2 minutes rest. And with some athletes, you do even probably a second set. So that is one way to do it. And what I like, because you have the higher intensity, you have a little bit like in the gym, the same duration, 1 to 2 minutes, like when you do strength endurance training. And the other way would be really to do sprint training, what you also see in a lot in other teams. So just standing sprints, or with big gear, really try to activate over 6 to 8 seconds maximum your muscle fibers, starting from a low speed. So that is also some good work to do. Seated, standing, depending on what you want to activate. For sure, seated, you can always activate more really the muscle fiber you need. Standing is more specific for example, sprinters, or for the whole body activation. So yeah, you have so much variations here. Only thing you should take care of is about your knees, so the tendons, that you don't overdo it at the beginning. So this high torque could have a bad impact on your patella, especially. So that's why go step by step when you are working with torque. That is the main message.
And you mentioned a link between durability and torque. What's that link?
Like I said, there's probably no study about this, but it could be that there's a link between the better you are in torque, so the higher. It's like in the gym too. The higher probably your maximum strength level is, probably also the better your muscle endurance is, and here a little bit the same. So if you have a higher muscular potential, probably also your muscle fibers, when you get tired, can resist to more load, or you can activate more muscle fibers, because when muscle fibers are getting tired, even with the same intensity, what is happening is that you recruit more muscle fiber. So you start to recruit more muscle fiber, but to recruit this muscle fiber, you also need these neuromuscular pathways. And that's what you are doing. That's what you are training when you are doing this torque work.
And is there an argument for, we talked about tendons and, the overriding goal of preservation of your tendons. So you're looking at gradual adaptation, like putting a little bit more stimulus on each time. Is there an argument for doing some sort of pre-workout activation session?
Yeah, I think that is something in general. So if you do some activation session, especially to activate your glutes, because this is something what often are not really activated on the bike. So often we do most of our work with the vastus medialis, vastus lateralis, with the front of your legs. Sorry, I don't have another English word in my
quads.
Thank you very much. With the quads, yeah, exactly. And but we are missing there a lot of potential from the glutes, and this can be something what just developed over years. Or for example, you have a crash, you fall on the glutes, and it could be that the body basically switch off the glutes, and you have no big activation, and you do everything with the quads. So but with this pre-activation, where you activate the glutes with some basic exercises, what you're doing not on the bike but off the bike, you have already a higher activation and a higher probability that you would also use the glutes, for example, on the bike. Or what you can do is even to overuse them a little bit before going on the bike, so that you really feel on the bike, okay, now the glutes are working. So that is not something what you should do every session, but just to get a feeling, are my glutes really working? Just doing some glutes exercise before you go on the bike, And then you also have a more smoother movement pattern. So for sure, your movement will be better on the bike. You will be more aligned. The whole muscle control will be better as if you would not do the pre-prep, especially for the harder session. Or for example, when listeners don't have so much time, because a professional, before he starts with interval, probably he has, I don't know, 1 hour warm up or 1 hour riding around, but probably you just have 15 minutes and then you do already your efforts. Then it's good to say, okay, let's make a pre-prep, 5 minutes investing, just that the muscles are firing from the beginning on.
Is that what the guys are doing? We see them at the start with bands.
Yeah, exactly. 100%. That's exactly what they are doing, especially with the bands. There are a lot of exercises where they especially try to train the glutes, the abductors, and just having that kind of recruitment of the muscle fibers.
Interesting. And just to finish up, in observationally, when you're looking at amateur riders, is there anything you think amateur riders, it's like what we're consistently doing that's just wrong? Is there one habit that you kind of just want to tap amateurs on the shoulder and say, oh, you really shouldn't be doing that, it's just holding you back?
It's a good question. It sounds weird, but I had not so much contact with amateur riders over the last years because I was so much in professional cycling. But I think one big thing is really what we talked at the beginning, to control the load, really to not thinking that more is always better. So really listening to your body, get a little bit away to just looking at your power meter. I think also this is good for amateurs, and probably, and I think that's the most important part. So I asked the professionals why they are doing it. So I think for the amateurs it's even more important why they are doing that sport. And that is probably not always about I have to win or I have to be the best or whatever, but really enjoy what you are doing there. So it's your recreational time. It's your passion. So enjoy it. It should not be something where you say, oh, I have to do again and again. No, you should really enjoy it. And I think also if you are tired and if you are completely over the point, you feel it. You don't want to go to training, so don't force you. So at that moment, probably just probably too much. So listen to your body. So that is something what for sure is important.
Dan, there's some absolute gold in this conversation. Thanks for kind of lifting the lid on what you guys are doing at the top level of the sport, and best of luck to you and all the guys for the rest of the season. Thanks for being so generous with your time.
Thank you very much, Anthony.
Thanks for watching, Roadman. Take 1 second, click up here to subscribe to the channel, and click down here where there's another video I know you'll love. See you next day.